You people keep blowing up your deals and losing your homes that you're trying to get into, blowing the whole thing to smithereens because you're just... Listen, there are some things when you're trying to buy a house, especially when you're in the middle of the process, but even before you get into contract or anything like that, there are some things that you cannot do. You mustn't. You should. You mustn't. You couldn't. You shouldn't. You wouldn't. That's pretty cool. That was like very Dr. Seuss-ish of me.
Yeah.
There are some things that you absolutely cannot do.
Yes.
If you are in the process or you have desire to buy a home. You've got to just hold on to your britches and talk to your realtor and talk to your lender. They're part of your team. Let us help you make some good decisions. Sam, hit him with the first one.
Do not make any
major
purchases before you close on the house.
Give me an example of a major purchase, please, Sam.
A car.
Hello?
Don't buy a car.
What is it about people wanting to buy a house and then going, you know what else? You know what would go really nice with this house? A nice car.
I mean...
They're right.
They're right.
But don't do it.
Don't do it.
What's the problem with it?
The problem is it jacks up your credit and it jacks up your DTI or your debt to income ratio prior to closing on the house and prior to closing on the loan that you are using to buy said house.
Hey, Sam, can you explain DTI or debt to income ratio to a high school student?
Did you just
Enter.
chat GPT?
I chat GPT'd you.
Fair enough. Debt to income ratio is exactly that. It is what is your debt and what is your income. There's a ratio that most lenders like to see. In general, generally speaking, depending on the lender, you're somewhere in that 45-ish% range. They don't want to see your debt exceeding more than 45-ish% of your income. And that includes the house that you're getting. The house that you are getting and the proposed or estimated payment is included in that debt to income ratio. As we all know, homes are getting less and less affordable today, right? Less and less affordable. Payments are higher and higher because interest rates seem to keep climbing higher and higher. Hopefully that's not the case for long. We might talk about that a little bit later or in another video. Definitely be sure to check out the market update video.
Yep.
But your home is included in that payment. That monthly payment is included in your debt to income ratio. That's going to take up a big portion of the debt in your debt to income ratio. So if you buy a car, you make a large credit card purchase, I don't know.
Here's the thing. It's not like you're going out to a nice meal and you're like, what goes well? What pairs well with this steak?
Yeah.
Red wine. What pairs well with this house? A Land Rover. No, it doesn't. Not right now.
No.
Maybe after you close, get after it. Hold on to your britches, get after it when you're ready. But while you are getting ready to close, and the other thing is that increases, there's art and there's science, right? So Sam is describing the science of DTI, but there's also a little bit of art to it of when a lender, somebody that's going to give you $500,000 or whatever amount your home is you're buying, but they're going to give you $500,000 and they see that in the middle of that process, you're like, oh, I also want a $100,000 Land Rover. That doesn't look great.
No.
That's what we're trying to say, right?
Yeah.
So yes, your DTI matters. You don't have to calculate this. You don't have to do that. That's what a lender is for. That is part of the pre-approval process. They'll go through, they'll tell you how much you can afford. They're running basically your DTI, right? And by the way, if you don't have a lender that is running all of your numbers and they're just giving you a pre-approval number or letter, they're dog water and don't use them. You should have somebody that's doing the work for you to put you in a great negotiating position. But that's not what this video is about. Other major purchases.
Anything to do with a credit card. Any like major purchase with a credit card, because that is going to change the payment amount that you owe every single month on that credit card. So you don't want to be making any major credit card purchases.
Yeah.
No like $10,000 down payments for your Land Rover. That's not how you're going to get around this whole thing.
Yeah.
Man,
Even just like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and put in this new house. So this is what really happens. This happens actually very often.
Yeah.
And people just don't realize. So this one is forgivable. It's understandable of why somebody would make this mistake, but it's still unacceptable. So I'm upgrading my house, right? And I'm moving into this beautiful $700,000 house or whatever it is, right? And it has like a dedicated movie room, right? Or we're going to turn it into a dedicated movie room. And so I take my credit card and I go to Best Buy and I start swiping that rig and I get a new Gucci projector and I get new surround sound system and I get the sofas, right? For the reclining sofas and the popcorn machine. This is real. Like I'm not making up a scenario. These are real scenarios that happen. And so somebody then throws down and easily puts $15,000 to $20,000 on a credit card because they want to put something into their home. Now, maybe a movie room sounds absurd, but what about just new furniture? Furniture's so expensive, and they run down to our house, by the way, gorgeous furniture at our house, ARHAUS. We have it in Colorado Springs. If you've never seen one, it's like a Snapchat or you're just like, oh my God, it's so much content. It's beautiful. Anyway, but they go in there and that place is super expensive. That's why I only take pictures because I can't afford anything in there. But they have $10,000 tables. Do not think because now you've got this beautiful house, you want the furniture to match. And so you go and you start swiping your card on furniture. Or you go swiping your card at the landscaper. Or you go swiping your card for all new appliances. Right? You see how these are like, it sounds so logical. I'll just go swipe my card. I want to furnish the new house. I want to put cool stuff in there. I want to make it better. I want to preemptively start paying for renovations. Don't. Just wait till you close. Right? Because you could totally bombshell. And tip number 2 that is along this same line is not only don't do that, but also don't open up new lines of credit. This one, we don't need to expand on this one, but it goes back to the art and science is you have somebody lending you money. And when you take out a new line of credit, open a new Amex Platinum or Chase Sapphire or whatever it is, that is a cue to the lender, to somebody that is trying to give you money. And they don't know you from Adam. So all they have is this report. And then they look at that and they go, oh, this dude's about to rack up a credit card. Oh,
swipe
and
that rig.
And that credit card has a $50,000 limit. Are they about to drop $50K and rack up $50K in credit card debt?
They say we have to take that into account. Right.
So don't open up new lines of credit while you're in the process of searching for a home.
No.
Especially when you're under contract.
You mentioned,
and before that, at the end of this, we're going to explain because like there's a little nuance here, right? Because it's one thing when you're like, okay, we're taking you around, we're looking at houses, and then we get under contract, right? Like we're already talking to a lender. That is like, these are very, very serious. But then there's a whole thing about what about the prep work? What should you be doing and not be doing before, honestly, maybe even before you're out looking at homes, right? Like maybe we already know each other and I'm giving you some advice and we're talking about and you're learning about the housing market because we want you to be educated. Sure. And there's no pressure there. We're just, you're going to buy a house 12 to 18 months later. But there's still financial things, right? So we'll kind of delineate that later. Sorry, you were going to ask me a question.
No, I was going to say I mentioned number 3 earlier.
Did I?
You did. What should you be doing before you even get into the process?
Get pre-approved. I'm hoping the words just popped up right in front of me. Get pre-approved. What is it? Take it.
Yes.
What does that mean?
When you go to get pre-approved from a lender, and this is kind of getting in the weeds, but like pre-qualification and pre-approval, they're sometimes used as interchangeable terms.
By laymen.
Yes. And it can be a little bit frustrating. But what you want to be doing to ensure that you're in the best place possible when you go to make an offer on a house is you want to make sure you are pre-approved with a lender.
Yep.
What does that mean? That means they have verified your income, they have verified your assets, they have verified your credit, looked at your credit profile, all those sorts of things. And then they have given you the green light, aka a pre-approval letter that says this person.
It's like the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the pre-approval letter. Most important documents in America.
That's true.
Basically. HOA docs.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry.
No, I love that. No, it's true because a seller in today's market wants to see that you have been pre-approved, wants to see this person that is buying my home is qualified to buy my home. Their assets and income have been verified. We're not going to have any sort of financial trouble in the middle of this deal.
Okay, is that okay?
Right.
So is that common though, right? Because a lot of people would be like, oh, I mean, because our natural inclination as human beings is we just naturally trust, right? So like, I'm selling my home. Sam shows up. He's like, I want to buy your home. And I'm just like, yeah, Sam seems like an upstanding guy. He's got a nice watch. He's dressed well. He drives a nice car. Like all these things, like, yeah, like he should be totally good to go. And it's like we just have this trusting nature, and that's great. And we should, because it helps society run. But the pre-approval letter, it's just like one extra, it's actual evidence, right? It's evidence from a third party, by the way. Not just me looking at Sam, who dressed himself up to look a certain way for me, right? When he presents this offer. So like, does it actually happen where financial situations, right? Somebody said that they were ready, but like turns out that financially they weren't. Does that actually happen?
Happens all the time.
All the time.
All the time. And especially in today's market where rates are really volatile, like the real estate market itself is really volatile, like happens all the time where you're 1 week into like all the contingencies and due diligences that come with, you know, buying a home. Happens all the time where buyers are 1 or 2 weeks in and they fall out of contract because the financing fell through.
Yeah, and by the way, if you didn't know this, correct me if I'm wrong, but the financing situation is pretty much a deal breaker and it's subjective. It's subjective to the buyer. That means that if they get the financing information back from the lender, which can happen pretty late in the process, right? They can just look at it and be like, oh yeah, I can't afford that mortgage, or doesn't feel good, or I don't like it. And they can just bounce, right? So this is why you really want, so for example, what does this mean for you as a seller? And maybe you have a better one, but my thought is like, okay, I've got a client and they're listing their home for $750,000. And then I get 2 offers, and one, they're approved for up to $750,000. And this might actually be a pretty bad example. And then the other is approved to like $1 million. Do you consider those differently?
I mean, yes, but.
Yes, but. Yeah, that's definitely a yes, but, because I've seen lenders, now that I thought about this as I was saying it, I've seen lenders write it for the asking price.
Yeah.
Or for what we're going to offer.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So maybe that was a bad example. But the point that I'm trying to illustrate is you're trying to find not only the best offer for the seller, but also the most qualified, the least risk, because you're taking that thing effectively off the market while you're trying to close this rig.
Yep.
And if you do that for 3 weeks and then this buyer falls out, that's 3 weeks that you've been off the market. And in today's day and age, that can mean, oh my God, that can mean 1.25% interest rate change, which changes the price of your home and the affordability of your home. It could be pretty catastrophic. So
bottom line, get pre-approved, find a good quality lender that can do that pre-approval for you. And you want to make sure before you're getting out there, they're verifying income, assets, credit, all that sort of stuff, so that you as a buyer know beforehand that you are good to go.
And also what you can afford. People have misconceptions and they're just like, oh, my budget is $600,000. You're like, based on what? Tell me. What is your $600,000 home purchase budget based on? Because if it's not based on a pre-approval letter, then, well, mine is 10 million, right? Like, how do I know that? What's the monthly payment? What's the down payment? What do those numbers look like? So pre-approval is super important. We do believe very much so in pre-approvals. However, we don't like pre-approval when it comes to liking videos. We like approval.
That's right.
So if you're enjoying this video, if you're getting value out of this, if you've learned something, like it. If you haven't, stay tuned because we've got a couple things that are they're not secrets, but shady agents, shady realtors would maybe not give you this kind of advice, or they'd give you kind of shoddy advice. So please like the video, subscribe. If you have a friend or family member or an arch nemesis, but that you're trying to like make right with the universe, send them this video so that they can make sure that their buying process is really good as well and they don't jack up their own lives. I guess if you really aren't trying to make right by the universe, then don't share it with them. But we're in the business of making the universe a better place. So the next one. So now we're under contract, right? We've put in an offer. We've done the pre-approval. We're good to go. Our finances, we haven't bought a big house or a big car or anything like that. Our finances are good. And now we're under contract. And we get versions of this question pretty regularly, especially over the last couple years. They were doing this absolutely bananas thing. People were waiving inspections. And I get it. The market was tough. And I want to share an anecdote, a little story with you. In fact, my brother and his wife, they had put an offer in on a house, and they loved this house. And they had been searching for a while. He already knew, he was like, I just feel like I already know that I'm getting raked over the coals because, he was watching what the market was doing. But we're trying to find a home that we're going to live in for at least the next 7 to 10 years that we can build a family, whatever. Great. Boom. They found this house. They loved it. It was gorgeous. They put in an offer. This was in 2022. Yeah, kind of second quarter of 2022. So things were creeping up towards their peak, which was kind of sucky. And so they put in this offer and they got beat out. And they got beat out because the other person waived the inspection. Now, I want to stack that on another story, shorter, but another really, really good friend of mine did the inspection. They walked through this house. It was beautiful. And he was like, man, it's in really good shape. And everything looked really, really spectacular. Mm-hmm. And then they had the inspector go in and do some of the stuff that you and I cannot see with our own two eyes. And the pipes were in terrible condition. The water lines were in terrible condition. So as they went through, there was weeds growing into them. They were cracked. It was bad.
The sewer line?
Yep. Yeah, the sewer line. And we're talking 30,000 doll hairs to fix that, right? So I told my brother this. I was like, yo, his name's Skylar. I said, yo, Skylar, I know it sucks to have lost that house. And you're probably wondering, should I have waived the inspection? And the answer is no. No, you shouldn't have. Because that would have cost you $30,000 eventually, because you would have had to figure it out. And whether you figured it out on the front end, or you figured it out when you were selling the house, or you figured it out when the sewer line burst and destroyed your property, you would have figured it out eventually. It would have been your problem. So in the case of my buddy Nick, he had the opportunity to actually get that work done and renegotiate into the price that major thing. So the really big ones, sewer lines, mold, foundation. Hit me with some other ones because my brain stopped. What are some other powerful things that come up in inspections that would be catastrophic if you did not catch them?
Yeah, non-functioning electrical work or bad electrical work.
Super unsafe, jerry-rigged electrical work. That's a good one.
Yep. I mean, honestly, even
DIY projects.
Even down to the minor stuff, broken appliances. You don't want to move in and find out that the dishwasher doesn't work all of a sudden, or it leaks everywhere and ruins the floor in your brand new kitchen. Water heaters, furnaces, air conditioning units, all these things. You definitely want to have that verified. So at the bare minimum, you at least know what you're dealing with. You might be in a really, really competitive market where maybe you can't negotiate those things, but at least you've given yourself an opportunity to say, do I want to negotiate these things? Do I still want to buy the property with these issues and
Yeah.
take care of them myself, whatever the case may be, you've at least given yourself an opportunity to know exactly what you're buying with the home inspection.
Well, yeah, and it opens up negotiation, right? Because then the next step is your inspection objections, right? And now you start working through like, well, I'd like you to fix this, and maybe they'll say no, and now that's where you really get strategic and you have good negotiating skills, or hopefully your realtor has good negotiating skills, and you can talk through, because like you're also not trying to blow up the deal, but something like mold, like bad mold, super bad foundational issues, sewers, like some of those things, right? It's like health and safety, right? Like
Yeah.
those are kind of like inexcusable. Well, the dishwasher is leaking, but it's like, okay, but are we really going to blow up this whole deal for a $500 dishwasher? Maybe, maybe not, right?
Yep.
So, anywho, the point of this is don't skip the inspection. If you need to tighten the inspection to make yourself more competitive because the market is insane and houses are going like that, and you're just like, I just want a health and safety one, right? Now they know you're not going to look at the dishwasher and you're not going to look at, like these other things that are not that important. You're just cared about structural things and health and safety, which is what I just said. So, okay, sure. But talk to your agent about that. Don't just put yourself in a long-term catastrophic scenario.
That's right.
Unnecessarily, right?
That's right. What's the next thing?
Okay. This one actually surprises a lot of people because they see, I want to buy a $500,000, we're just going to use easy numbers. I want to buy a $500,000 home. I'm going to put 10% down. All I need is $50,000 in the bank. Wrong. Generally. Look, there can be a whole video about this, so don't come at me in the comments and be like, yeah, well, I wrapped it into the loan. I know. I'm not stupid. We know that there are creative ways to go around these, but generally speaking, there are things called closing costs. And closing costs can surprise a lot of people. The amount that is due at closing, and it pays for things like the inspection, for example. So a lot of times, that's where it gets rolled in. That $250 or $350 or whatever it was, that is paid at closing in some instances. So, can you
Your appraisal.
Your appraisal. Give some examples of just like
Your prepaid, so your taxes,
yeah.
your utilities, those things are usually prorated to the date of closing or the date of like the transfer of ownership. Lender fees, origination fees,
Yep.
like any fees that you want to pay to potentially buy down your rate if that's something that you're doing. Concessions, like any of that sort of stuff, that's all going to be a part of closing costs.
Yeah, I see this most commonly, and I did this video like on my TikTok at one point. I see this most common with military buyers because military buyers, they know that if they use the VA loan that they can put zero down, and that's cool. But does that mean that you don't have to have any money saved up? And I always get these people that come swinging in after I say this, and they're like, well, I didn't put any money down. It's like, well, yeah, but you still paid for that. It's called a lender credit. Rolling it into the loan is called a lender credit. You paid for it somehow, and you paid for it by having a higher interest rate than what you were initially quoted. So get off my back. Anywho, you still have closing costs. And the other thing that people want to jump on our backs about is like, yeah, but Sam, the seller paid for all mine. Did that work 2 years ago?
No.
Was the seller paying for any of your stuff?
Not really.
No.
Not in this market.
Generally, no. Not in our market because people were offering $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over asking price to get into a home.
Yep.
And the seller was like, didn't have to give up anything, right? So just know that you need to be prepared to have money at closing. A general rule of thumb
Outside of your down payment.
outside of your down payment. Yep. A general rule of thumb is about 4 to 6% of your purchase price is a kind of a safe space to be, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
I think that's
maybe
like
a little bit less, but yeah.
I say 4 to 6% just because of like like it's probably going to be a little bit less than that, but it's like definitely you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Just because you don't know what the deal is going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Enough on that one. I'm sorry. That one just drives me nuts. But this next one, and this is the final one, is this is actually Sam is an expert at this. He is a master at this one. Negotiation.
Don't be afraid to do it.
Don't be afraid to negotiate.
No. The worst they can tell you is no.
Generally.
Right.
The worst that they could do is actually just be like so offended that you offered something else and they're like, nah, I don't want it at all.
Sure. But that's where a good realtor comes into play, is
Yeah.
like helping you understand like where and how and when to negotiate.
Yeah. I've never seen a deal blow up because somebody made a reasonable offer. I've seen deals blow up because you're like, well, it's listed at 300. Let's just offer them 190.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, now you're just wasting people's time. But good negotiation
Yeah.
is powerful.
It is. Absolutely. In a recent deal we had, we were able to negotiate for the buyer a credit that came from the seller that was then able to buy her interest rate down a little bit. Temporary buy down. So it's a 2-1 buy down. We've talked about it before on this channel. Make sure to check those videos out. But it's temporarily going to give her a little bit of a reprieve from the super high payments that these super high interest rates are causing right now. A lot of different places that you can negotiate. You can obviously negotiate on the purchase price. You can negotiate for things to be installed or for things to be fixed or credits to be given, or concessions, credits, kind of interchangeable there. You can negotiate for those things. You can use those credits for some things like closing cost, make your closing costs a little bit cheaper at the table. All sorts of ways that you can negotiate. Don't be afraid to do it. While you want to remain respectful and reasonable and all those things so that you don't blow up a deal, don't be afraid to negotiate. We're in a market now where in a lot of places it's more possible than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was looking at the data yesterday, actually, and for the Colorado Springs area, it said strong sellers market. And, I agree, generally speaking, with that, right? Because our inventory is low, interest rates are high. And so, like, we're still in this balancing act. It's still a little volatile. We're trying to figure out where it's going to go. But here's the thing, is that the days on market are also increasing and people are uncomfortable with that. Sellers don't like that feeling because they're like, well, Billy's house down the street sold in 4 days. And it's like, yeah, well, that was 2 years ago. Or, like mid last year, maybe. Or because his house was super nice and yours isn't. So what I'm finding is that we've got a lot of room to negotiate. And negotiate sounds like this really like, all right, well, I'll give you this if you'll give me that, right? And like sometimes it is that, but sometimes it's just, do you have an agent that's got the guts to ask the question, that's not scared, that can pose questions really well, and get a feel from the other agent? This is just choosing an agent 101. Do they have good people skills, right? Because that's what they're doing. They're like, dare I say, like the quarterback for the whole team, right? Like they're trying to coordinate with what is the other team doing. They're trying to figure out what you're doing. They're trying to figure out the lender and the inspector and the appraiser and all these things. And they're trying to manage all these things. And so like they need to have good interpersonal skills. Most, in my experience and generally my style, is like, I'm not trying to like trick other people into doing what I want them to do. Mm-mm. I'm trying to get to a win-win solution, right? Because in my opinion, in my estimation, that's how you get a deal to the finish line, right? Both parties walk away from it like feeling good. We're talking about like just making the universe a better place. But I am advocating for you. I am your fiduciary, but I understand what's going to blow up a deal, what's going to cause them, oh, well, they're being butt heads about this. Well, then, right? And like, you don't need that. Not on the biggest purchase of your life. No. So negotiation skills, very, very powerful.
That's right.
Subtle, but good.
Yeah. Quick little recap. Don't make any major purchases. Cars, credit cards, things like that. Don't be opening new lines of credit. Make sure you're getting pre-approved beforehand. Don't skip the home inspection. Number 5.
Don't forget to factor in closing costs.
That's right. And don't be afraid to negotiate.
That's it.
That's it.
If you follow these simple steps, in fact, we'll follow them for you. We're realtors. We'd love to help you. We'd love to represent you. Whether you're buying or selling, we got you covered. We are the best in the biz. It's Pretty clear. So our contact information is down below. Please reach out, even if it's just you just want to talk real estate. You just want to learn more. You just want to be better. You want to be the most educated buyer in the game. We can help you do that. We'd love to represent you. We'd love to help you out. Peace.